What's up everybody? I'm Noah, and this is a Rambling Knave Special Edition. Alright, so on today's special edition of the Rambling Knave, I'm coming at you solo from my secret underground lair located thousands of miles below the Earth's crust. Where are the other two guys? I don't know. They're probably on the surface. Anyway, today I'm going to be ranking all 34 of the Godzilla films from worst to first because, well, number one, there's a new Godzilla movie coming out and I'm super excited for that. And number two, because as you can probably guess, I'm a little bit of a Godzilla fan myself. So, without wasting too much of your time, let's get started. Number 34. This fucking thing. I'm sorry, it's canon, I have to talk about it. Now the movie has its defenders, I get it, and the defense is usually along the lines of, if you retitle it, but you can't, it's a Godzilla movie, that's the title, and it sucks. It's not just a bad Godzilla movie, it's just a bad movie, okay? Like, I can't defense it. I remember when this came out in theaters, I was 12, and I was really excited to see it, and then I got there and I saw it, and that was the first time in my life where I realized that life is unfair. So, what's wrong with the movie? The story is bad, it rips off Jurassic Park, the Godzilla design sucks, he's got like a Jay Leno chin, and the worst offense, he gets killed by fucking missiles. Missiles? What the fuck? Did they even look at it? Have they even seen a Godzilla movie before? This is the worst. Next. Number 33, Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle. Okay, this is part 2 of the Netflix anime trilogy. So if you haven't seen those, this is probably going to be a little spoilery. So I'm going to say you can pause it here, and then we'll have a number. We'll have the timestamp down here for where you can skip forward to the next movie in the list and not have anything ruined. So this one, I don't know if it would really ruin anything for you because it's really fucking boring. Like, I get it, it's the bridge film because all 3 movies are supposed to be just one big movie. So this is the one in the middle that is just 90 minutes of exposition. The thing that puts it down the list for me is there's a concept that they use in the movie that I find eternally awesome, and then they just ruin it. Mechagodzilla City. Think about that. A Mechagodzilla City? Like a sentient Mechagodzilla that's the size of a city, and then it does all the it has all those cool weapons and has all this great powers. No, it's fucking boring. It's just like a diesel fuel plant and with guns on it, and it's stupid. Basically, this movie is boring and totally passable. Number 32, Godzilla Raids again. Okay, so this was the direct sequel to the original Gojira, and it was made in a hurry. Like, they tried to capitalize on the success of the first movie, which, see, that's been going on for a while, and when they rushed it out, it lost all meaning. The original one is a very poignant allegory about the atomic bomb. This movie just, there's none of that. He fights Anguirus, they introduce Anguirus, that's cool. Other than that, the story is boring, the puppets are too puppety, there's not really a lot of good Godzilla action, it's just really passable and shoddy, and I mean, that's what you get for a rushed sequel, huh? Number 31, Son of Godzilla from 1968. This one's an unfortunate dud. This one introduces Minilla, who is the titular son of Godzilla. And instead of being kind of a badass, you end up with this reptilian Pillsbury Doughboy looking thing, which is like some Lovecraftian nightmare when you say it. And he sounds like an asthmatic donkey and has about all the stamina, and he finds himself continuously on the receiving end of some questionable parenting techniques and just always in peril at the hands, I guess I should say pincers of the enlarged invertebrates. And it's just, the whole movie, like, it has a good concept and it's just really trying because you can't feel for Minilla. It's just kind of annoying the whole way through. I will say, I like Kumonga, the giant spider. He's cool. But other than that, he's just a giant spider. And the other bad guys are just giant praying mantises. And that's kind of lame. So, this is, I mean, What are you gonna do? Good concept, gone to waste. Number 30, Hedorah, Horror of the Deep. Okay, so this was from 1966, and interestingly enough, this was actually supposed to be a King Kong movie. Yes, you heard me right. And it'll all make sense later. Okay, so the story goes, you know the production company Rankin Bass? You know, they do all the Christmas specials that you see ad nauseum every year. Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed, Santa Claus is coming to town. Okay, that's them. In the 60s, they had rights to a King Kong cartoon. So they teamed up with Toho, wanted a King Kong movie. Toho basically gave them the script and they said, oh, that's not really what we wanted. So Toho, having everything already set up, just said, fuck it, let's put Godzilla in instead. They went on to make King Kong Escapes, which was their King Kong movie. It's So this explains some of the bizarre sort of, not inaccuracies, but like behavior of Godzilla. That, he's awakened by lightning. That's a King Kong thing. He just fights a giant lobster. That's it. And then a giant bird. So again, he's got lame villains, but if you put King Kong back in, then the lobster gets kind of cool. Otherwise, it's just a giant lobster. And he also has this weird affinity for the island native girl. Again, that's a King Kong thing. So if you put King Kong back in the movie, it all makes sense. I personally have a soft spot for this movie, it being one of those dubbed VHS cassettes I had as a kid, taped right off the Saturday afternoon matinee. It doesn't help save it from being kind of a shitty movie, but I do kind of like it. Number 29, All Monsters Attack, from 1969. You might know this one as Godzilla's Revenge. Now, upon import from Japan to America, oftentimes the title got changed. So the original title, All Monsters Attack, got changed to Godzilla's Revenge. For some reason, I don't know what or who he gets revenge on, but apparently, maybe off camera he does. Anyhow, this one is sort of infamous for generally being the one that always makes the bottom of the list. And I get why, but I also think it's a little unfair. Now hear me out. On the surface, it's a terrible movie. Like, if you're watching it as an adult, it sucks. But it's a great kids movie. And you know why? Because it's A, it's only an hour long. B, there's a ton of monster footage. Yes, a lot of it is stock footage from earlier Godzilla movies, but nevertheless, it's there and kids love to watch that. Hell, I love to watch that. 3, it's a moral tale and it has a message. The main character in the movie is a young kid who gets bullied at school. So he uses his imagination to escape the real world and visit Monster Island. And I can't think of any more relatable trope than uses his imagination to escape reality and visit Monster Island. I'm 33 and I still do that. So anyway, he gets to Monster Island and he befriends Manila, who's generally at the center of all the shittiest movies. Anyhow, Manila is also bullied too by a monster called Gabra. So together they find the courage to stand up to their bullies. So really it's a nice, it's a good message movie for kids. And again, it's an hour long. They're going to sit through it. So I think this is a great way to get kids introduced to Godzilla. There's also a lot of interesting subtext going on about industrial Tokyo at the time. Like you'll notice the kids are all wearing yellow hats. That's to help them not get hit by cars. Because that's when Japan was starting to really latch on to people driving cars, and kids are small and can't be seen. So yeah, like the kid in the movie, his parents are always working. I think you see his dad once in the whole film. So it's kind of a commentary too on just what life was like at the time. So again, it's not a great movie, but I do think it's unfairly maligned. Number 28, Godzilla vs. Gigan. When evil aliens plot to take over the world, Godzilla has to team up with Anguirus to fight not just King Ghidorah, but a new monster with hooks for hands, a laser eye, and a buzzsaw in the stomach. Sounds like a winner, right? Man, are you going to be disappointed when you see this one. Everything lines up correctly. That synopsis I just gave you sounds like gangbusters. As it stands, this movie sucks. Like, it's a total disappointment. The suits are falling apart. The plot shifts between like trying to be serious or trying to be whimsical. There's just like a lot of stock footage used, which wasn't necessarily uncommon, but this is another one that kind of like just overdoes it with that. And it's just like, Like, Gigan's one of my favorite monsters, and like his first appearance is just like, really? That? So again, there's not much to recommend here. It's fun for if you're a completist, like me. I mean, it's worth watch at least once. And hell, there's a scene where Godzilla and Anguirus talk to each other, and if you get the right version, you can get the one with the comic speech bubbles, which I think is pretty fun. But other than that, kind of a bad movie. Number 27, Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters. This is the first movie in the Netflix anime trilogy. So again, if you haven't seen it, there's probably going to be spoilers. You can pause here and jump to the next one. There should be a card letting you know when to go, where to go to. Okay, so it's okay. That's really all I've got about it now. Like, maybe I still haven't processed the whole trilogy because it's a lot more human-centered than Godzilla-centered. And it's different, but I don't know if I like the different. Like, there's a lot of exposition. There's a lot of world building with the human characters, and Godzilla almost seems to take a backseat in his own movie. And I know that we're going to come to one where that's another argument too, but this one is... The grand reveal is astounding. Like, I will say that. It is worth slugging through the first 80 minutes to get to the big Godzilla reveal. But other than that, it's just, I don't know. I was just not interested, and maybe it's just because it's animated. But, I mean, it's got some great concepts. But again, I can't put it any higher than 27. Number 26, Godzilla vs. Mothra, The Battle for Earth. This is the 1992 Heisei series, Godzilla vs. Mothra, and I wish it were better. Like, the final battle between Mothra, Batra, and Godzilla is pretty awesome. It's beautifully shot, it's really colorful with a lot of rainbowy laser rays, and the Mothra model for this one is just like really bright and just real beautiful. And Batra hits Godzilla with a Ferris wheel, which that's awesome. I've always wanted to see that and didn't know it. But overall, the movie is very pro-environment. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm also very pro-environment. That's my, that is my degree field, is environmental science. The thing is, the movie just takes two heavy, ham-fisted, just gobs of this and just shoves it down your throat with almost every other line, to the point where it starts to distract from the movie itself. Like, I'm all for making a point, but you don't have to make your point every 5 minutes. So anyhow, that's kind of, again, that's why it kind of gets low. The Heisei series is no stranger to topics like preserving the environment. That started with Godzilla vs. Hedorah in the 70s, but again, it's too much in this movie. So all of this pro-environmental stance gets in the way of giving Batra a better story, I guess. In the movie, Batra is essentially Dark Mothra, and I just don't feel like they gave him or it enough, not just to do, but they didn't really explain it too well. There wasn't a lot for Batra to do. It was mostly Mothra. So there's some hiccups here. It's, again, the fight at the end is really cool, so it's worth seeing for that, but otherwise, number 26. Number 25, The Return of Godzilla, or in America, Godzilla 1985. Okay, so this was the first movie of what was called the Heisei series, and the series demarcating lines are the Japanese political dynasties. Even if it's a little murky, there were a couple of Heisei movies that weren't made during the actual, literal Heisei dynasty. So we have the Showa series that came first, the Heisei series after that, and then the series beyond is called the Millennium series. Now then, since this is the first movie in this new series, it functions as sort of a soft reboot. Not necessarily a sequel, but almost. And it's okay. It's moody and dark, and the ending is really touching, where Godzilla falls into a volcano, and it's pretty moving. But on the whole, it's kind of long-winded. This is also the first one that got an American remake since the very first movie, Gojira. And in the remake, beyond all the product placement, like this movie will make you want to drink a Dr. Pepper for no reason, they bring back Raymond Burr's Steve Martin character, the reporter, not the comedian. So the American version functions more as a sequel because of this recurring character. And again, the American version is still okay. A lot of product placement, and it's kind of neat to see Raymond Burr reprise that role. But on the whole, I think this one's kind of passable. Number 24, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus from 2000. And this one's pretty average. Like, that's really all I can say about it, and I've just recently watched it about a month ago. I like the Megaguirus design. I like the pointy, long tooth, evil dragonfly. They do a good job in the movie of making him a worthy opponent. And I also like that it's a callback to the original Rodan movie, where the Meganulon insects are the first things that the baby Rodan eat when they hatch from the eggs. So that's a cool, callback to an earlier movie. But overall, it's just kind of like, it's just a paint-by-numbers Godzilla movie, which isn't bad. It's just you don't feel like revisiting it all the time. Again, the final battle between the monsters is really cool. There's a couple of really standout scenes when Godzilla toasts the dragonfly at the end, when he catches his stinger in the mouth, when he uses his dorsal fin to cut off a wing. There's some really inspired choices in the fight. Other than that, it just felt like average. Number 23, Godzilla, the Planet Eater. Okay, so this one is the third part of the Netflix anime trilogy. So again, if you don't want it spoiled and you haven't seen it, skip to this time and you'll be good to go. Okay, so my take on it is the third one was the better of the three, or the best of the three. The thing is, and what gets it so low, is because you have to watch the first two to get this one. Like I said, this is technically supposed to be one 4.5-hour movie just broken into 3 segments. So you can't take one without having the others. And I think that's kind of a detriment because I love Godzilla, but a 4.5-hour movie is just way too much. Now then, I really like what they did with the King Ghidorah character, monster I guess, where Ghidorah is an actual god of some weird death cult, and his first appearance in this movie is just absolutely thrilling, where he comes out of a black hole and just destroys this, spaceship, and there's nothing anyone can do about it because he's just an ethereal, ancient god, and it's all pretty dramatic, and they don't really do much beyond that. Like, it goes in, it attacks Godzilla, and for a couple of minutes, it's really just, it's breathtaking. But then the battle becomes really one note because it's an ethereal god, and Godzilla can't do anything. And again, this is the one where all of the characters' motives start to become clear, plot lines wrap up, you'll have questions for the first two up until about this one, and then they'll start making sense. The protagonist is still kind of a douche, and I can't really get behind him, and that's another knock against these movies, is that you can't, when it's hard to identify with your protagonist character, it's hard to really invest in the movie. So maybe I'll come around and like these a lot better. Ask me again next year and we'll see where these land. Like I said before, they're different, and I don't know if they're different in a good way or if they've taken some really inspired concepts and they just have no replay value. So I'm going to leave it at 23. I think that's a good ranking for it right now. 22, Godzilla 2000 from 1999. Okay, so if there's one good thing that came out of the Godzilla 98 debacle, is that it prompted Toho to bring Godzilla out of an early retirement. They didn't plan to have Godzilla back for another 5 years, so this was a good surprise. The movie as a whole is not bad. It's not great, but I do remember being very happy after I saw this one in the theaters, because it was Godzilla again. It wasn't that, fucking Jay Leno lizard. It was the real, true Godzilla with the spikes and the breath and just the roar, and it was fine, and I loved it. Objectively, it can't go any higher on the list because there are, 21 better movies in my opinion, but it is a really good entry into the series, and I'm really happy that with the Millennium series as a whole, actually, but this was the first one to come back and sort of restore my faith in humanity a little. So, I don't know, maybe I should put it 5 slots higher for, restoring my faith in humanity. The Orga Monster, the new creation that Godzilla fights, is really cool too. The end of the movie has him sort of like trying to, like, unhinges his jaw like a big snake and starts swallowing Godzilla and then taking on, like, Godzilla's features, like assimilating him, kind of like alien snake Borg style. And I thought that was just awesome, especially seeing it on the big screen. He gets exploded before he can really turn into Godzilla, which is kind of a disappointment, but what are you going to do? Anyway, I do really like this movie, so maybe a 22 is kind of a iffy ranking, but that's where it landed. Number 21, Godzilla. And this is the 2014 American version done by Gareth Edwards. And watching it back without my fanboy glasses, it's okay. I still do like this movie, I will say that. But I do now see its flaws. When it first came out, I was so just very happy to see Godzilla on the big screen again that it kind of disguised some of the iffy things about the movie. Now then, people complain about not seeing Godzilla enough. And I don't think that's entirely fair, because this movie, on a percentage scale basis, has as much Godzilla screen time as Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, the first one, Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, the first Ghidorah movie, and the original Gojira. So you can't really criticize it for not having enough Godzilla, because he's in it just as much as he is in the 3 of his best movies. The problem with the movie is the people. And I know that's a weird argument to make for a Godzilla movie, because who's ever said, I want to see more people in the Godzilla movie? Nobody. But the best Godzilla movies also have a compelling human story, and these characters just aren't. They're really one note and kind of annoying. And the 2 best characters, human-wise, in the movie are either A, killed off early, or B, kind of like almost tertiary in a way, and that would be Ken Watanabe. So again, I don't complain about the Godzilla screen time, because the screen time you do get is just fucking off the charts cool. When he does the atomic puke and down Muto's throat and head comes off, that is the coolest Godzilla kill in the entire series. I will die on that hill, but that is the coolest kill, and you know it. If you saw that in the theater and you weren't like cheering because of how cool that was, you probably just don't have a soul. Again, it's flawed, but it's a fine movie. Number 20, Godzilla vs. Megalon from 1973. Okay, this is some next level silliness right here. And if you're looking at the poster where Godzilla is fighting Megalon on top of the Twin Towers, I don't know why they're there. That's pretty much, that's par for the course for the movie. You're either down with this movie, I am, or you're not. That's kind of how this movie works. The surface dwellers piss off a race of underground people, not affiliated with my secret underground bunker, and they send a giant beetle to the surface to destroy us all. A toy maker's person-sized cyborg gains superpowers and the ability to grow for reasons. Gigan shows up for more reasons. And then Godzilla does that tailslide thing, which I can't get a GIF on here, but just type in Godzilla tailslide GIF and you'll see what I mean. So really, this movie is just a ton of fun. And it's bad. It got the MST3K treatment, and I think that's fair. But if you just turn your brain off and go with it, this is one of the most fun movies in the entire canon. Number 19, Godzilla vs. Hedorah from 1971. Now, I also really like this one. And initially I had it higher, but it kind of had to fall back down a bit. So this is the first one where Godzilla begins to tackle sort of a contemporary theme, I guess, and this one's the environmental one. Hedorah, the monster that he fights, is just a giant sentient pile of pollution. And he's actually pretty cool, and actually really hard to beat, which, duh. So of course I identify with this one, if you've, been watching. It's also sort of strange because it's really, really 70s. Like, there's these weird animated interstitials that are just sort of randomly sprinkled throughout, There's a bizarre scene at a dance club where the main character starts hallucinating and everyone's in these grotesque fish masks. And then and this is like when Godzilla was like the, fully established as a children's character. And there's some pretty gross on-screen death. Like, this melted skeleton thing. Like, this is a movie that your kids are probably watching, and that's kind of grossing me out. Anyway, so all in all, I like it because I think the weirdness helps. It's not something you saw before in a Godzilla movie, so it's jarring at first, but you get used to it. It's also pro-environment, and I just told you like 3 movies ago, like, hey, that was good, but this one doesn't, the Mothra thing was a little heavy-handed. This one's kind of heavy-handed too, but it feels more ingrained in the movie. Like, it doesn't take away from it. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, at the end of the movie, Godzilla flies. Yeah, like, he just figures out how to use his atomic breath to, I don't know why he never does it again, but did it here. Number 18, Godzilla Against Mechagodzilla from 2002. And this is the first of 2 Mechagodzilla movies in the Millennium series. And I was trying to figure out where to really put them on the list, and they just sort of landed here. And I think it might be a little too low, but at the same time I almost kind of feel like this is right where they need to be. And here's why. They're good. Like, really good. And it's only 88 minutes long, this one, so it kind of moves by at a really good clip. And the new Mechagodzilla is fantastic. I love this new Mechagodzilla. It's called Kiryu, and it was built around the skeleton of a dead Godzilla. Dude, that is like the coolest concept ever. Like, that might be even cooler than the original Mechagodzilla, almost, in concept. The original Mechagodzilla was more badass, I will say that. But the Kiryu suit is great. I love the design. I love the concept. It's just, in the movie, they have him retain some, like, ancient, like, sort of instinctual memory implant. Like, it's a Mechagodzilla, but it has that, Godzilla psyche. And there's a part where where it malfunctions, it goes on a rampage because Godzilla roars and it triggers something in Mechagodzilla's, reptile brain. And because the movie is only 88 minutes long, they don't really do much else with that. And I think that could have been like the whole movie. But it wasn't. I know I can't criticize for what it wasn't rather than what it is, but I think that was a big missed opportunity. Either way, I do recommend this one and the next one just because, again, they're brightly paced, the battles are great, I love the new Mechagodzilla, there's that missed opportunity which I can't bring it myself to put it any higher than 18. And then, while we're on the topic, number 17, Godzilla Tokyo SOS. And this is the direct sequel to the one I just talked about. And it's actually the only direct sequel in the Millennium series. Now then, it takes place a year after the last one, and like none of the main characters return, so that's kind of weird. I like this one slightly better because Mothra is involved. Bringing in Mothra is generally always a good idea, and it almost felt like when you watch both of them back to back, it almost feels like the first one just is sort of a setup piece for this one, which also only tops out at like 91 minutes. So really, you could have smushed those 2 movies together and just had one big epic long Mechagodzilla movie, which would have been totally cool with me. Or you can just screen it yourself as a double feature. Anyhow, again, the production value on this one is just top notch. The battles are great. Mothra looks great. The sacrifice Mechagodzilla makes at the end is actually kind of moving. It's not really a sacrifice, sort of is. But the way they end it is great. Again, I think because they broke up the first movie and this movie into 2 kind of like shorter movies, there's a lot that could have been done but wasn't. Okay, so this ran long, so stay tuned for part 2 coming at you in just a little bit.